The diamond caught the light like a middle finger aimed directly at my face. "Miles, honey, we need to talk." Rena stood in our loft's doorway, her voice dripping with that fake sweetness she reserved for delivering bad news. The ring on her left hand, not the modest band I'd bought her 3 years ago, but something that could finance a small country, glittered as she gestured dramatically. I didn't look up from my laptop. "No, we don't. But Miles, Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories." "Rena." I finally raised my eyes, giving her my best accountant stare, the one that made embezzling executives confess their sins. "Whatever you're about to say, I already know. The only question is whether you want to do this the easy way or the hard way." She blinked, momentarily thrown off her script. Good. Nothing ruins a cheater's momentum like refusing to play their game. That was the moment I stopped being her husband and started being her reckoning. 3 months earlier, I'd started noticing the changes. New lingerie tags in the trash, showers immediately after coming home from her girls' trips, phone calls that ended abruptly when I entered the room. Rena Cole Turner, hospitality manager extraordinaire, had been managing more than hotel bookings. The girls' trips were the real tell. Every other weekend, supposedly visiting her college roommate Viv in Boston. Except Viv lived in Hartford now, had for 2 years. I knew because I'd done Viv's taxes last April, and her address was burned into my memory like a bad audit. "Miles, please, just listen." Rena stepped closer, the ring catching the light again. "I've met someone who makes me feel alive again." "Congratulations." I closed the laptop with deliberate calm. "I hope you two will be very happy together in someone else's apartment." Her perfectly contoured face crumpled. "You don't understand. Eli proposed. We're getting married." Eli. I tested the name like wine that had turned to vinegar. Let me guess. Tall, drives a BMW, sells real estate, thinks cologne is a food group. The color drained from her cheeks. "How did you—" "Mrs. Larkin from the Marriott downtown. Sweet lady. Been doing her books for 5 years. She mentioned seeing you there quite a bit, always with the same flashy gentleman. Said you booked suites under your maiden name." I stood up, straightening my tie. "Funny thing about hotel records, Rena. They're very detailed." She opened her mouth, then closed it. The ring suddenly seemed too heavy for her finger. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued, walking to my locked office door. "You're going to pack your things, all of them, tonight. Because tomorrow morning, this apartment goes back to being mine." "You can't just throw me out?" "Actually, I can. The lease is in my name. Has been since day one. You might want to mention that to Eli when you tell him his fiancé has been living with another man for 3 years. Nothing says congratulations like a U-Haul and a notarized eviction. The movers arrived at 8 a.m. sharp, just as Rena was leaving for her final girls' trip, which I now knew meant one last weekend with Eli before breaking the news to her parents about their engagement. "You sure about this, Miles?" Sam Rodriguez, my only real friend at the accounting firm, watched the crew load box after box of Rena's belongings. "This seems pretty nuclear." "Sam, my friend, Nuclear would be posting their hotel receipts on Facebook. This is just good housekeeping." The crew chief, a mountain of a man named Tony, hefted Rena's designer shoe collection like it weighed nothing. "Where to, boss?" I handed him the address written on expensive stationery. "The Cole family estate. Tell them it's a delivery from their daughter's fiancé." Sam whistled low. "Her parents don't know about the engagement?" "They don't know about anything. Rena's been spinning quite the web." I picked up a framed photo of Rena and Eli from her nightstand, the one she thought I hadn't found. But webs have a way of collapsing when you remove the right thread. By noon, the loft was cleaner than it had been in years. Every trace of Rena Cole Turner erased, except for one small detail I'd left in her jewelry box, a note written on hotel stationery. "Thanks for the memories. E." Let her explain that to her parents. My phone buzzed, a text from Rena. "Having amazing time. Eli surprised me, going to tell Mom and Dad about engagement tonight. Can't wait for you to meet him." I typed back, "Looking forward to it." She wanted a new life. She got one, just not the one she picked out in the window. The call came at 6:30 that evening. Rena's voice was barely controlled hysteria. "Miles, what did you do?" "All my stuff is here at my parents' house, and Eli is furious, and my mother is asking questions I can't answer, and—" "Breathe, Rena. Remember your yoga classes." "This isn't funny. Eli thinks I lied to him about living alone." "Didn't you?" Silence. Then, That's not the point. Actually, that's exactly the point. See, Eli was under the impression he was proposing to a single woman, not someone's wife. We're separated. News to me, and to the lease agreement, and to our joint bank account, which I closed this afternoon. Another silence, longer this time. You closed our account? My account. Funny thing about direct deposit, it only works when the account holder authorizes it. Your final paycheck should clear just fine, though. Oh, wait, I forgot. You don't have a job anymore. What are you talking about? I had coffee with your boss yesterday. Mentioned you'd been moonlighting with a competitor. She was very interested in those business trips you'd been taking. Amazing how hotel receipts can look like industrial espionage when you present them right. The sound she made wasn't quite a scream, but close. Miles, you can't do this to me. I'm not doing anything to you, Rena. I'm just stopping doing things for you. There's a difference. I hung up and poured myself a whiskey. The loft felt bigger somehow, cleaner, like a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying had suddenly lifted. Who needs a lawyer when you've got leverage? O'Malley's Pub had been my refuge for 15 years since college. The kind of place where everyone knew your name and your drink order and nobody asked questions they didn't want answered. The perfect place to let certain information slip. Miles, Jerry, the bartender, slid my usual across the scarred wooden bar. Haven't seen you in weeks. How's married life? Educational, I replied, taking a sip. Very educational. The regulars were already gathering, Tommy from the construction crew, Mrs. Peterson, who ran the flower shop, Dave, who coached Little League, the unofficial information network of our little corner of the world. Speaking of education, I said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear, anyone know anything about the real estate market? Specifically, what happens when someone loses a major deal because of personal drama? Tommy looked up from his beer. Why? You thinking of buying? No, just curious. See, I heard about this real estate guy, Eli Drake, who was working this huge commercial deal. Then his personal life exploded all over social media and the clients got spooked. Mrs. Peterson leaned in. Eli Drake, tall fellow, drives that flashy BMW? That's the one. Apparently he was engaged to a married woman. The whole thing came out at a family dinner. Very messy. No! Mrs. Peterson gasped. Who was the woman? I shrugged, playing innocent. Someone local, hospitality industry. Used to work at the Marriott before she got fired for conflict of interest. Dave nearly choked on his beer. Wait, you're talking about Rena Cole, aren't you? That's your wife. The bar went quiet. Every conversation stopped. Was, I corrected. Past tense. Turns out she'd been taking business trips with her boyfriend for months. Even got engaged to him while we were still married. The explosion of gossip was immediate and beautiful. Phones came out, text messages flew, and I could practically see the story spreading through social media in real time. My own phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We need to talk? Eli. I showed it to Jerry, who laughed. You gonna meet with him? Why not? Should be entertaining. Sometimes the best revenge is just telling the truth at the right time. Eli Drake arrived 20 minutes later, and he was everything I'd imagined. Tall, tanned, wearing a suit that cost more than most people's cars. He spotted me immediately and strode over with the kind of confidence that comes from never being told no. You Miles? Depends who's asking. The guy whose life you just destroyed. He loomed over my bar stool, trying to intimidate me with his height advantage. I took another sip of whiskey. I think you've got me confused with someone else. I destroy numbers, not lives. I'm an accountant. Don't play dumb. You know what you did. I know what I didn't do. I didn't lie to my fiancé about being single. I didn't book hotel rooms for affairs. And I definitely didn't lose a $2 million real estate deal because my personal life became a circus. His face turned red. You son of a... Careful now. Tommy stood up from his table, all 6'4" of him. This is a family establishment. Eli looked around, suddenly aware that every eye in the bar was on him. The locals didn't take kindly to outsiders making trouble. You think you're clever? He hissed. You have no idea who you're messing with. I stood up slowly, meeting his eyes. You're right. I have no idea who I'm messing with, because the Eli I heard about was supposedly smart enough to run a successful business, but the Eli standing in front of me was dumb enough to propose to a married woman without doing basic due diligence, so which one are you? The bar erupted in laughter. Someone in the back shouted, Burn! Eli's hands clenched into fists. For a moment, I thought he might actually swing. Then Jerry cleared his throat and reached under the bar, where everyone knew he kept a baseball bat signed by Ted Williams. I think you should leave now, Jerry suggested politely. Eli looked around one more time, realized he was outnumbered, and stormed toward the door. But karma has a sense of humor. Someone had spilled beer near the entrance, and Eli's expensive leather shoes had no traction. He went down hard, landing in a puddle of Budweiser and peanut shells. The entire bar lost it. Someone started recording. Mrs. Peterson was laughing so hard she was crying. Eli scrambled to his feet, soaked and humiliated, and fled. "Well," I said, raising my glass, "that was educational. Who needs YouTube when you've got O'Malley's?" The war officially began 3 days later. I was leaving my office building when Eli stepped out of the shadows, blocking my path to the parking garage. Gone was the expensive suit. Tonight he wore jeans and a leather jacket, trying to look intimidating. "Thought you were clever, didn't you?" His voice was different too, rougher. Getting me fired, humiliating me in public. "You got yourself fired, Eli. I just provided the entertainment." "You destroyed my reputation, cost me everything." I adjusted my briefcase strap. "You destroyed your own reputation when you decided to mess around with a married woman. I just made sure people knew about it." "You're going to pay for what you did." "Am I? How exactly?" I looked around the empty parking level. "You planning to beat me up? Because that would be assault, and I've got security cameras recording this conversation. Or maybe you're thinking of vandalizing my car. That's destruction of property. Either way, you'd be looking at criminal charges on top of everything else." His confidence wavered. "You think you're so smart." "No, I think you're remarkably stupid. See, when I decide to ruin someone's life, I use legal methods. Paperwork, evidence, the truth. You want to threaten me? Go ahead. But remember, I'm an accountant. I know how to document everything." I pulled out my phone and hit record. "Please continue with your threats. I'm sure the police will find this very interesting." Eli stared at the phone, then at me, then back at the phone. Whatever plan he'd had crumbled in the face of actual consequences. "This isn't over," he muttered. "Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet." He stalked away, and I allowed myself a small smile. Bullies were always the same, tough until someone pushed back. But Eli wasn't done. 2 days later, I came home to find my apartment door jimmied open. Nothing was stolen, but everything was searched. Drawers pulled out, papers scattered, cushions overturned. The message was clear: I can get to you. The counter message I sent was clearer. I waited until Saturday night, when I knew Eli would be at his usual hangout, an upscale sports bar downtown where he went to sulk and hit on women who didn't know his story yet. Then I called in a favor from Tony, the moving crew chief. "You want us to do what?" Tony asked. "Redecorate his apartment. Nothing illegal, just move some furniture around. Make it clear that two can play the breaking and entering game." "What if we get caught?" I handed him an envelope. "You won't. But if you do, this covers bail and legal fees." Tony peeked inside and whistled. "Damn, Miles, you really hate this guy." "I don't hate him. I'm just teaching him about consequences." Sunday morning, Eli called me, screaming. "You broke into my apartment." "Did I? That's a serious accusation. Do you have any proof?" "My furniture was rearranged. My clothes were folded differently. Someone was in my apartment." "Sounds like you might have a cleaning lady who's very thorough. Or maybe you're just paranoid. Have you been sleeping well, eating right? Stress can cause all sorts of memory problems." "I know it was you." "Prove it." "Oh wait, you can't. Because if someone did break into your apartment, which I'm not saying they did, they were smart enough not to leave evidence. Unlike someone I could mention." I hung up and made myself breakfast. The war was escalating, but I was winning. Sometimes the best defense is a good offense. And sometimes the best offense is just being smarter than your opponent. The construction site was Eli's idea, though he didn't know it. I'd been feeding him information through mutual acquaintances, letting slip that I worked late on Thursdays, that I parked in the garage next to the half-finished office building downtown, making myself look vulnerable, isolated. Eli took the bait. I was walking to my car when he stepped out from behind a concrete pillar, and this time he wasn't alone. 2 guys flanked him. Muscle for hire. Probably day laborers he'd picked up for cash. End of the line, accountant. I stopped walking, set down my briefcase, and checked my watch. Right on time. I was beginning to think you'd chickened out. What? The security guards do their rounds every 20 minutes. They just passed, which gives us about 18 minutes before they come back. Should be plenty of time. Eli's confidence flickered. Time for what? For you to realize you've made a terrible mistake. I pulled out my phone and hit a speed dial number. Tony? Yeah, he's here. Go ahead. The construction site erupted in noise. Floodlights blazed to life, illuminating the entire area. Air horns blasted from multiple directions. A cement mixer started up with a roar. Eli and his hired muscle spun around, disoriented by the sudden chaos. What the hell? You see, Eli, the thing about construction sites is they're full of workers who know how to handle troublemakers, and when you pay those workers overtime to stick around after hours, they're very motivated to earn their money. Tony emerged from behind a bulldozer, followed by his entire crew. 12 guys, all carrying various tools, all looking very unhappy about having their evening interrupted. "This the guy giving you trouble, Miles?" Tony called out. "That's him? And his friends?" The hired muscle took one look at Tony's crew and decided they weren't being paid enough for this. They melted away into the shadows, leaving Eli alone. "You can't do this," Eli shouted over the noise. "This is kidnapping." "No, this is trespassing. You're on private property after hours, threatening a citizen. We're just making sure you leave safely." Tony's crew formed a loose circle around Eli, not threatening, just present. The message was clear. You're outnumbered, outgunned, and out of your league. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, walking closer. "You're going to stop harassing me, you're going to stop breaking into apartments, and you're going to disappear from my life completely." "And if I don't?" I smiled. "The next time I won't be so nice. See, you made one crucial mistake, Eli. You assumed I was just some boring accountant who'd roll over and take whatever you dished out, but accountants are very good at finding things. Financial records, criminal backgrounds, immigration status." His face went pale. "You wouldn't. Try me. I've already started pulling your credit reports. Very interesting reading. Did you know you're 3 months behind on your car payments? And that business loan you defaulted on in Phoenix? The one you forgot to mention on your real estate license application?" Eli looked around desperately, but there was nowhere to run. Tony's crew had all the exits covered. "What do you want?" he asked finally. "I want you gone. Out of town, out of state, out of my life. You've got 48 hours to pack up and leave. If I see you after that, all those financial records go straight to the state licensing board, the IRS, and anyone else who might be interested." "You're bluffing." I pulled out a manila folder and tossed it at his feet. Bank statements, loan applications, credit reports, all legally obtained through public records and business contacts. "Take a look." Eli picked up the folder with shaking hands, scanned the first few pages, and went even paler. "How did you—" "I'm an accountant, remember? This is what I do. And this is just the beginning. Give me another week, and I'll have your entire financial life mapped out in spreadsheets." The construction noise stopped as suddenly as it had started. In the sudden silence, my voice carried clearly. 48 hours, Eli. Don't make me count to 3. He dropped the folder and ran. Sometimes the best weapon is information, and sometimes the best threat is the one you don't have to carry out. Rena's parents' annual garden party was a sacred institution in their social circle. 200 of the city's most prominent citizens gathering to see and be seen while pretending to care about charity. I hadn't been invited, of course, but Sam had, through his wife's connection to the hospital board, and Sam owed me a favor. "You sure about this?" Sam asked as we walked through the manicured gardens. "This seems like social suicide. Only if you're planning to stick around afterward. I'm not." The party was in full swing. Men in blazers discussing golf handicaps, women in designer dresses comparing vacation plans. Rena stood near the rose garden, holding court with her mother and a small circle of friends, playing the role of the tragic abandoned wife. "Completely blindsided," she was saying as we approached. "One day we were happy, the next day he just snapped. Threw me out without warning, closed our accounts, even got me fired. I think he might be having some kind of breakdown." "Oh, you poor thing," one of the women cooed. "Men can be so unpredictable during midlife crisis." "That's one theory," I said, stepping into the circle. Every conversation stopped. Rena's face went white. "Miles, what are you doing here?" "Enjoying the party. Your mother throws such lovely events." I nodded politely to Mrs. Cole, who looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. "Beautiful roses this year." "You weren't invited," Rena hissed. "No, but Sam was, and he needed a +1. I gestured to Sam, who waved awkwardly. "I think you should leave," Mrs. Cole said icily. "In a moment. First, I wanted to clear up some misunderstandings about my so-called breakdown." I pulled out my phone. "See, I've been carrying around some interesting audio files, recordings from hotel security cameras. Amazing what you can pick up with modern technology." Rena's face went from white to green. "You can't what? Play recordings that were legally obtained through a private investigator? Actually, I can." I hit play. Rena's voice filled the air, crystal clear. "So stupid, he has no idea. Once we're married, I'll divorce him and take half of everything. The loft alone is worth $300,000. Eli's voice responded, "What about his business?" "I've been copying his client files for months. We can use them to start our own firm." The garden party crowd pressed closer, hanging on every word. Mrs. Cole looked like she might faint. The recording continued. "The best part is, he's so trusting. He actually thinks I love him. God, what a pathetic little man." I stopped the playback. "There's about 20 minutes more, but I think you get the idea." The silence was deafening. Then the whisper started, spreading through the crowd like wildfire. Rena tried to salvage the situation. You don't understand. He edited those." "Actually," Sam said, stepping forward with a briefcase, "we had them authenticated by a digital forensics expert. They're completely genuine." He handed Mrs. Cole a legal document. "Certified analysis. No editing, no manipulation, just your daughter planning to commit fraud, embezzlement, and industrial espionage." Mrs. Cole read the document, her face growing harder with each line. When she finished, she looked at Rena with pure disgust. "Get out. Mother, please. Get out of my house. Get out of my garden. Get out of my life." The crowd began to disperse, conversations buzzing with scandal. Several people were already on their phones, spreading the news. Rena turned to me, tears streaming down her face. "How could you do this to me?" "I didn't do anything to you, Rena. I just played back your own words. If you're embarrassed by what you said, maybe you shouldn't have said it." "I loved you." "No, you loved my bank account. There's a difference." She looked around desperately, but found no allies. Her friends had melted away, her mother had turned her back, and the party guests were giving her a wide berth. "This isn't over," she said finally. "Yes, it is. See, Eli took my advice and left town yesterday. Packed up everything and drove to California. Apparently he decided you weren't worth the trouble after all." The last bit of color drained from her face. "That's not true." "Check your phone. I'm sure he left you a very touching goodbye message." She fumbled for her phone, hands shaking. I could see the exact moment she found Eli's text because her knees buckled. "He's gone," she whispered. "They always are, Rena. Men like Eli don't stick around when things get complicated. You should have figured that out when he ran from the bar." Mrs. Cole stepped forward, her voice like ice. "You have 1 hour to collect your belongings. After that, the locks will be changed." Rena looked at me one last time, mascara running, designer dress wrinkled, the fairy tale completely shattered. "I hope you're happy." I considered the question seriously. "You know what? I actually am. For the first time in months, I'm genuinely happy." She turned and walked away, shoulders shaking with sobs. The crowd parted to let her pass, whispers following in her wake. Sam clapped me on the shoulder. "Damn, Miles, that was brutal. That was justice." I pulled out my phone and deleted the audio files. I wouldn't need them anymore. Sometimes the best revenge is just letting people see who someone really is. The truth has a way of cutting deeper than any lie. The loft felt different now, not just empty, but clean, like a fresh start waiting to happen. I was packing the last of my own belongings when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I could see a young woman in a delivery uniform holding a large envelope. "Miles Turner?" "That's me. Certified delivery. Need your signature." The envelope was from a law firm in California. Inside, I found divorce papers, already signed by Rena, and a brief note from her attorney. "Mr. Turner, my client wishes to expedite these proceedings. She makes no claim to property, assets, or support. Please sign and return at your earliest convenience. Sincerely, Robert Coleman, Esquerber." I laughed out loud. Even in defeat, Rena was trying to control the narrative, making it look like she was being magnanimous instead of desperate to escape before I dug up any more dirt. My phone rang. Sam. "Miles, did you see the news?" "What news?" "Channel 7. They're running a story about real estate fraud. Apparently, the state licensing board is investigating several agents for using stolen client information to undercut competitors." I turned on the TV just in time to see Eli's photo flash on screen, along with the words, "Wanted for questioning." "Fled the state before investigators could interview him," the reporter was saying. "Authorities believe he may have been part of a larger conspiracy involving identity theft and corporate espionage." I smiled. Sometimes karma needed a little help from the state licensing board. The story continued. Also under investigation is Rena Cole, former hospitality manager, who allegedly provided confidential client information to Drake in exchange for personal favors. The photo they used was from her LinkedIn profile, all fake smiles and professional ambition. Now she was just another face on the evening news. wanted for questioning in a fraud investigation. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is all your fault. I'll never forgive you." I typed back, "Good. I don't want your forgiveness. I want you gone." No response. I finished packing, signed the divorce papers, and called a cab to take me to my new apartment across town. Smaller than the loft, but it was mine. All mine. As the cab pulled away, I looked back at the building one last time. 3 years of my life lived in those walls, but I felt no nostalgia. Only relief. The radio was playing an old song, something about moving on and starting over. I leaned back in the seat and smiled. Sometimes the best revenge is just living well. Everything else is just entertainment. 3 months later, I was having coffee at O'Malley's when Jerry slid a newspaper across the bar. "Thought you'd want to see this." The headline read, "Local woman sentenced in fraud case." Rena had been arrested in Nevada, trying to run the same scam with a new boyfriend. The judge gave her 2 years probation and ordered her to pay full restitution to her victims. "She tried to use you as a character reference," Jerry said with a grin. "Claimed you were abusive and drove her to crime. What happened?" Judge looked at the evidence and laughed. Turns out having recordings of someone planning fraud doesn't exactly support the innocent victim defense. I folded the paper and handed it back. "Good for her. Maybe she'll learn something." "You really think so?" I considered it. "No, but that's not my problem anymore." My phone rang. A potential new client, wanting help with their books. Business was good. Word had gotten around about my attention to detail, my thoroughness in uncovering financial irregularities. Apparently, having a reputation for destroying cheaters and fraudsters was good for business. Who knew? I finished my coffee, left a generous tip, and walked out into the sunshine. Somewhere out there, Rena was probably planning her next scam, and Eli was probably running his. But that was their story now. Mine was just beginning.